Hearing on the 2019 proposed budget for the Department of Public Safety, Division of Police, Division of Fire, and the Division of Support Services. I would like to thank my colleague, Michael Stenziano, for being present this evening, for attending the hearing. Copies of tonight's agenda are available at the entrance of council chambers. Also, a friendly reminder, any person who takes action to obstruct or interfere with tonight's meeting may be charged with disturbing a lawful meeting. Any person who enters the area of city council chambers reserved for city officials or invited guests may be charged with trespassing. Public safety continues to be the main priority for Mayor Andrew J. Ginther. The overall budget for the department is more than $622.5 million, over 68% of the total $912 million general fund operating budget. Some of the highlights will be discussed this evening. Hearing will be updates from Mayor Ginther's neighborhood safety strategy, additional recruiting classes for police and fire, and the department's new cadet program. Tonight, Assistant Director George Speaks will give an overview of the budget process for the Department of Public Safety. Then Deputy Chief Mike Woods from the Division of Police, Assistant Chief James Cannell, Battalion Chief Sean Devlin from the Division of Fire, and Support Services Administrator Ramona Patz will highlight the budget proposals for their respective divisions and outline the goals and initiatives for the coming year. I would like to have them all present first and then reserve time for my colleagues to ask questions. Director Speaks, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Safety Chair Brown. Councilmember Stenziano, it's an honor to be before you tonight and present our 2019 budget. We greatly appreciate the support and allocation of City Council. And as you can see from our budget, public safety continues to represent Mayor Ginther's top funding priority, as shown by the approximate $622.5 million allocated and proposed in this budget, which equates to 68% of the overall general fund. Our public safety forces are nationally recognized as among America's most elite. Prior to talking about this budget, I would first ask our division leaders who are with me tonight to highlight some of the outstanding and innovative work that's been done this year in our neighborhoods in response to an approximately 1.25 million calls for service a year. We'll begin tonight with Deputy Chief Mike Woods.
Thank you, Director. With respect to the Division of Police Council, 2018 was an exciting yet challenging year for the CLIA accredited Division of Police. I am pleased to report that the number of homicides is trending down for this year. Aggravated assaults, which include non-fatal shootings, are trending slightly higher than the previous 3 years. However, despite a difficult and dangerous environment, our officers have partnered with the community, and as a result, overall crime continues to decrease. This decrease is occurring even though the population of Columbus continues to grow and the number of police personnel remains mostly static. The division appreciates the class of 50 recruits that started this month. We also look forward to the additional 80 officers planned in the 2019 budget. Welcoming new officers to the division and creating new initiatives to confront violent crime will remain a top priority as we work to keep our neighborhoods safe. We continue to focus on training for both the police recruit and the incumbent officer. Our goal remains to provide state-of-the-art training to our personnel so they can effectively deal with violent crime while meeting community expectations. We underscore de-escalation, scenario-based, and crisis intervention training. Our excellence in training is reflected in the fact that many outside agencies send their officers to our academy for training. Transparency and accountability are fostered by our body-worn camera program. This program has deployed over 1,200 cameras that are recording approximately 65,000 videos per month. The 1,200 camera total includes all officers assigned to the patrol subdivisions and the Traffic Bureau. Addressing residents experiencing mental health issues remains a priority. The division has partnered with Adam H. to place 4 NetCare mental health clinicians with 4 crisis intervention team trained officers to respond to mental health related calls for service. In just 6 months, the mobile response teams responded to over 1,300 calls for service and work with clients to link clients with community services that can assist them. The project was very successful, and we plan to add a 5th officer to this program in 2019. Likewise, we continue to explore innovative ideas to address the opiate crisis. Through a grant from the Ohio Attorney General's Office, the division has added an officer to the Rapid Recovery Emergency Addictive and Crisis Team. Working with CFD, REACT teams follow up with recent overdose victims, working to convince them to enter treatment at the Mary Haven Addiction and Stabilization Center to stop the cycle of abuse. Community outreach and engagement continue to be a focus for the Division of Police. Neighborhood meetings, social media, and our diversity and inclusion officers are avenues used to collaborate with citizens. We also expanded the Safe Streets Community Policing Initiative in 2018 to 3 neighborhoods: Linden, the Hilltop, and Parsons Avenue. With the proposed Safe Streets budget for 2019, we continue to engage residents to make them part of the problem solving for their neighborhood and improve community police relations. The Division of Police looks forward to the recommendations from the Matrix Consulting Group and the Mayor's Community Safety Advisory Commission to help improving our service capabilities and our relationship with the residents we serve. Thank you.
Okay, Assistant Chief Kennel with Fire. On behalf of Chief O'Connor, I'd like to thank you for allowing us to present here tonight, and thank you for your continued support. With respect to the internationally accredited Division of Fire, the Division of Fire is comprised of 5 bureaus, each of which has focused on meeting the goals and objectives as outlined by Council in the Mayor's office. The Fire Prevention Bureau reorganized to meet the changing needs of the 21st century. This involved the transfer of 12 additional personnel, district inspectors, into the unit. This has resulted in improvements in the number and quality of fire prevention inspections performed. Through the community involvement with the smoke detector program, we continue to make families safer by installing smoke alarms in many neighborhoods. Just last month, these efforts resulted in 3 elderly gentlemen being safely evacuated from a house fire where one of the smoke detectors that we installed in 2016 woke them up from their sleep and allowed them to safely exit their house. Fire was actually coming through their roof when firefighters arrived. Efforts will be expanded in 2019 to continue the cooperation between the building department and fire prevention, allowing for residences and business owners to more easily apply and obtain inspections and permits. The Division of Fire Emergency Services Bureau continues to see the expansion of our EMS responsibilities. Daily, the division averages over 533 calls for service. This is trending about 2.8% higher than last year. Emergency service has concentrated on the increasing incident command training for our senior leaders, which has resulted in increased safety and efficiency on the scene and may have contributed to almost a 50% reduction in our multiple alarm responses year to date. Our Support Services Bureau within the division broke ground on a new Fire Station 35 located on Wagner Road just this past fall. This continues the commitment the city and the Division of Fire have shown to provide timely and effective EMS and fire response by providing a response of less than 8 minutes to 91% of all calls for service. This station has an added focus on being the first in our city to be built with an emphasis on EMS firefighter safety by being designed to decrease the exposure our members face to toxic environments. The Division of Fire's Recruitment, Diversity, and Inclusion Office performed over 1,000 programs, reaching over 15,000 participants. The Division of Fire's continuous goal is to reflect the diversity of our community throughout our workforce. In 2018, we expanded this office with the addition of a battalion chief and 2 firefighters. We expanded the use of social media and instituted for the first time a text-to-apply process. Now we can get immediate engagement with any prospective recruit by just having them text "Join CFD 474747. We currently have over 700 individuals from diverse backgrounds, regularly engaged, receiving weekly updates on recruitment and preparation events like Fit and Inform, firefighter mile practice, sign-ups, and more. We also partnered with the Columbus Urban League to provide mentoring and tutoring to make candidates more successful in the hiring process. The division will be having sign-ups for new hires in January 2019 with testing in February to May. By fall of 2019, our goal is to hire from this list individuals who reflect the community with serve, and also efforts have been devoted to more than doubling the level of diversity in the division within the next 9 years. In 2018, we continued our focus on the opiate epidemic by utilizing EMS to reduce deaths due to opiate overdose. Our Rapid Recovery Emergency Addiction and Crisis Team, which we refer to as REACT, was active in assisting individuals struggling with addiction. This team, comprised of Division of Fire paramedics, a police officer from CPD, and an addiction specialist, has become a model in the nation. In addition, the Maryhaven Addiction Stabilization Center, referred to as MASC, opened in February 2018, and we have had a productive partnership with them in routing patients with opiate use disorder to their facility to receive definitive care. We want to acknowledge the support the Mayor's Office, City Council, City Attorney, County, and the City and County Health Departments have given. This additional funding through the budget, as well as grants, have allowed this program to make a daily impact on this crisis by being a bridge to rehabilitation and treatment. The division appreciates and looks forward to the addition of 75 recruits planned for 2019 budget. This addition will help us not only replenish the loss of personnel due to separation, but also prepare for the opening of Fire Station 35 in 2020. The Division of Fire is proud of our accomplishments in 2018, and with your support, we will continue to be focused on our mission of providing timely and effective fire and emergency medical services. Thank you.
The Division of Support Services mission is to provide communication and technology services to our first responders, as well as ensure the public is safe in regards to licensing, permitting, and inspections. In regards to license and permits and inspections, as of November 30th, the Division has been very busy, demonstrated by the issuance of over 41,000 licenses by the license section. For example, we license food trucks, taxi cabs, street vendors, and arcades, among others. The Weights and Measures section inspected over 16,000 devices. For example, they inspect gas pumps, laundromats, car washes, and air pumps, anything that you can put money in and expect a service. In regards to our 911 functionality in our systems, we are near completion of a total replacement and upgrade of our current 911 system. We are also near completion of adding text to 911 functionality to our system. The 911 Communications Center processed over 1.2 million calls into the 911 Center as of the end of November. 662,000 of those were 911 calls, and over 560,000 of those were non-emergency calls. In regards to the public safety radio system, we have had over 12 million push-to-talks with no busy signals for our officers or firefighters, which means there was no downtime for our first responders. In the coming year, we plan to transition to web-based payment systems for licensing and permitting in both license section and weights and measures. This will allow our residents easier access to license and permit renewals, new license and permits, and scheduling inspections.
So, Chairman Brown, as you just heard from our leaders, we've had a very busy, productive, and an innovative 2018. But now let's switch our focus and talk about the 2019 proposed budget of approximately $622.5 million. That total represents a 2.65% increase over this year's allocation. And this budget allocates $342.3 million for police, $264 million for fire, and $7.6 million for support services, and lastly, $8.4 for the overall safety administration. Some of the highlights within that budget are as follows. First, the fire class. This budget proposes 75 fire recruits, 35 in June, 40 in December, and that will continue the mayor's trend of increasing the total number of firefighters over projected retirements. For a number of years, we were only budgeting, as you recall, Chairman Brown, for a single fire class. For example, in 2012 and 13 and 14 and 15, we only had one class of much smaller numbers. However, Mayor Ginther added an additional class for a total of 65 in 2016 and budgeted 2 classes in 17, totaling 80 recruits, and 85 this year. So the 2019 year-end projection with this proposed 75 recruits, we will hopefully end up with 1,596 firefighters, which will help us to prepare for the opening of the new fire station, Station 35, in 2020. Similarly, in police, with respect to recruits, it's anticipated during 2019 there will be a total of 80 separations. Officers lost to these separations will be replaced by 2 budgeted classes, totaling 80 recruits, 40 in June, another 40 in December, to maintain our nationally accredited division of police and also maintain our sworn levels at the highest level ever in the history of the city. Another initiative of funding is our Narcan expansion. The Division of Police will continue with this program started last year with an additional $150,000 to help equip many additional officers with this life-saving drug to counter a heroin overdose. New and expanded neighborhood safety strategies will be funded through a new $2.9 million Safe Streets Initiative Fund in this proposed budget. This $2.9 million allocation will allow our Division of Police to effectively implement a longer program while maintaining the necessary patrols for Columbus. This initiative will undoubtedly foster safety and enhance our police-community relations. Both divisions of police and fire will implement a new, we're very excited about this, cadet program next year. We hope to leverage our various community partnerships to build a pipeline of qualified, diverse candidates to enter our safety academies in both police and fire through this new initiative. As you know, vehicles are always an important aspect of public safety. We have been working with fleet management to determine the number of cruisers, unmarked vehicles, and the general fund light vehicles to be replaced next year. This year, we were fortunate and were able to purchase 80 marked police first responder vehicles, such as the SUV Explorers, motorcycles, the prisoner transport vehicles, and the hybrid responder vehicles. Likewise, we were able to purchase 46 unmarked vehicles and 6 marked SUV and 12 unmarked for the Division of Fire. So it's a very good year for purchases of our fleet and public safety in 2018, and we hope to continue that next year. As you know, we have a number of initiatives and programs with community partners. We will be funded at or slightly more with those in those partnerships. For example, we'll be funding our jail contract with the Franklin County in the amount of $4.5 million. Our EMS billing contract at $2.3 million, our community crime patrol at $375,000, our wonderful partnership with the Capital Area Humane Society at $250,000, our truancy efforts at $75,000, and as you recall, a new initiative that we put into place the last 2 years, the COPE and foam boards. These are the boards in which our city residents are helping to select police officers and firefighters. We're funding that at $67,200 next year. We always strive to engage the community to foster a better partnership, one of mutual trust and understanding and accountability, and we will certainly underscore that effort once again in 2019. We thank you for your time, and we're available to respond to any questions you may have about this budget. In closing, Public Safety greatly appreciates the support of Mayor Ginther, our Columbus community, and City Council.
Thank you, Director Speaks, and members of the respective divisions. Since it's just me, it's going to be, Director Speaks, elaborate a little more on the COPE and foam board so the public knows what role they can play should they make contact with the Department of Public Safety to participate in those responsibilities.
Wonderful. So these boards are comprised of members of the public. We will be putting out advertisements. Last year, those advertisements appeared throughout our community. There's an application process. There are then interviews, and a number of these folks will be hired. It is an intense preparation and an intense week or two of work in which they will be listening to various scenarios that are opposed to applicants, and then they help to score and rank those applicants. So it's a unique program which, once again, the residents of our city are helping to choose their own public safety forces. It's a wonderful program.
Thank you. Let's go into a couple questions about body-worn cameras, one of your favorite subjects. The status with regards to the Ohio legislature to create additional privacy exemptions.
Oh, I have a wonderful update for you. As Chief Woods says, we are now taking about 65,000 videos a month.
Yes.
Now, as you know, when police respond to an emergency, many times it could be that person's worst day of their life. It could potentially be the most embarrassing day of their life. We are going into places in which folks expect privacy, into their homes, into businesses, into their bedrooms. Ohio's public records law is very open, and therefore when we get public records requests, we have to respond to those. So we have worked with Representative Herschel Craig and likewise Representative Atani. They put a bill together and they formed a coalition of the Ohio Newspaper Association, the ACLU, the state FOP, academia. We had much community in support. Clergy was on a committee that I had the honor of chairing to provide some recommendations as to better protect the privacy of folks who are captured on these 65,000 videos per month. And I am pleased to state that I believe it was just last week or perhaps the week before, it passed the Ohio legislature. So we expect Governor Kasich to sign that before his exit, and we will have a new law protecting privacy of not only our residents here in Columbus, but folks throughout the state of Ohio.
Thank you. Chief Woods, I guess, what has been the reaction with regards to the police officers who now wear body-worn cameras? In your comment, you made references to all folks in patrol are now wearing BWCs, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I think we are seeing a move toward officers that don't want to work without them. It's a great tool for transparency, but it also helps when we're investigating crime. It helps document crime scenes, our interactions with the public. So officers are really beginning to embrace the program, and most times do not want to work without one. We've looked at a few other units beyond patrol and traffic, and we're doing some testing right now. We need to get some equipment, and we hope to add body cameras to our tactical units maybe by the second quarter of 2019. We have to overcome a little bit of where to place them. They're a little different uniform than what our patrol officers wear, but we're working toward that and hope to have that taken care of very soon.
And I understand you're also working with the Department of Technology in the sense of being able to handle all this video footage. I mean, the Director Speaks was commenting on I mean, you got your own TV show going on now.
Yeah, we have approximately 65,000 videos a month. We are going to have to increase our storage space as a result of the new contract with the FOP. Citizen complaints can now be taken up to 90 days after an event. So to make sure that we have any potential video or interaction saved, we've increased the time that we keep that video, even if it's non-evidentiary, from 90 days to 120 days. We want to move beyond the 90 days to make sure that we have time to go back and find it. So we have a little additional storage needs, but we think that's helps with our transparency and helps with this program.
Undeniably. Director Speaks, is there money in the budget to do all that? Because storage is also expensive.
Yes, and we're working with Department of Technology to ensure that we have that storage. The storage and the infrastructure is by far the most expensive aspect of body-worn cameras. The cameras themselves are relatively inexpensive.
And is there additional technology going on in the sense of research with the body cameras? I mean, when they get activated or when they're not activated, anytime an officer draws his or her weapon, the cameras automatically come on. I know that's part of the discussion for new technology. I assume you're pursuing that.
So we are looking at that. As with all technology, it's changing constantly. So as you know, with respect to the cameras in the cruisers, there are what's called automatic buttons, if you will, things that turn on. So, for example, if you exceed a certain speed, the cameras automatically come on. That technology will soon come to body cameras, but currently our cameras, an officer has to push the button in order to start or stop the camera. As technology changes, there will be more automatic means in which to start to film. So those are evolving.
And also, for this budget, there's, Chief Woods, maybe you could speak to this. I know officers spend a tremendous amount of time having to write reports, but now there's some additional technology where they can just provide the report through a system that gives verbal, and then they don't have to do as much writing. Is that something you guys are looking
I
at
think
as
those
well?
are things that we're exploring. We haven't arrived at that yet. It is still an officer typing into the computer, obtaining the information from a citizen, and entering the information into a computer. But anything that we can do to try and reduce that time an officer is away from patrolling or away from being available for an emergency call for service, we're always looking at avenues to try and reduce that. And technology, as the director indicated, is constantly changing. And as soon as we think we're at the top of it, it makes a change on us.
Yeah, I think it changes well, I'm an old guy, so I still use a pen and pencil. But again, technology is moving at such a pace. Just a few moments from you, Chief, on cyber. What's going on with the police division with regards to our ability to address the concerns on people abusing circumstances by breaking into systems and all that with cyber technology?
It's a very timely question. At executive staff today, we discussed a potential of a pilot where we're going to place an officer as a cyber investigator. We're still exploring a job description for that, what the requirements would be needed, where we could place them. We're looking at possibly working with an outside agency that has some technology already in place, some analysts, but they need an officer with that. So we want to see if that's an avenue that we can leverage without spending too much of city money, but being able to work with someone that does have the technology already in place.
Well, it seems to me like that's an area where a civilian with law enforcement working together, anything I can do to help in that regard, please let me know. Again, it's an area that is out of my bailiwick specifically, but somebody can educate me, all right?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chief Cannell, I didn't forget about you. I just wanted you to, we talk about EMS response times, and you're discussing the fact that in the Fire Station 35, approximately what's the projection date for it to be open in 2020?
Late 2020. We actually have, to be exact, our projection is actually February of 2020. I got that in Station 16 mixed up. So February of 2020 is the projected date.
Would you speak to the issue with Fire Station 35 being open? We currently have response times over 91%, less than about 8 minutes. Will that have an impact on response times?
Most definitely. And what we deal with out there, where our response times are more concerning is during rush hour. If you've ever tried to drive east on Broad Street during rush hour, you'll know what I'm talking about. So we really think, during certain hours, we will definitely make an impact and improve our response times out there with our Station 35, both EMS and fire.
I am very familiar because I live about, less than a half mile from Fire Station 5. And so I'm very sensitive to the fact that when I see EMS responding or see fire responding, Broad Street can be an issue. The timeline when folks are getting off from work at Mount Carmel, that traffic pattern changes dramatically. So an impact on that will be significant in the sense of monitoring what our capabilities are to respond more aggressively. And that part of the population has increased over in that part of the city as well. So just pay close attention. The staffing numbers, I take it, will be sufficient. To operate a fire station takes how many firefighters?
We start off by the minimum of 8 firefighters per shift, 8 firefighters and 1 officer. So times 3 is 9, 27.
27. So with the respective classes and the folks that are separating, we should be in good shape with regards to having appropriate staffing numbers for Fire Station 35.
Yeah, I would estimate we would end next year with approximately 1,596 firefighters, which will be the most in our city's history.
Yes. And I understand, Chief Cannell, you're also looking at Fire Station 16 again? Is that, that's also in?
Yes, Fire Station 16, we've acquired property, and we thank you for that. And groundbreaking is estimated for this summer and take approximately 15 months, and we're looking at late 2020, early 2021 for the opening of the replacement of Station 16 in the North Linden area.
Given the fact that Fire Station 35 has some innovative procedures being done, built into the station to protect our firefighters, spend a moment and speak to that issue, sir.
Yes, this is our first firehouse where we've built into the firehouse our preventative measures, and what do we mean by that is the toxic effects of smoke in our decontamination of firefighters. The one major issue or major item that was added is a direct capture diesel exhaust evacuation system. And this is when your fire apparatus are running in the bay or take off and go on a run, we have the issue of exposing everything in the firehouse with that toxic diesel smoke. This new firehouse will have a capture system which will prevent that. Also built into the firehouse is a positive pressure that will be created in the living areas, which will prevent those toxic smoke from permeating into the living areas. Also, with this firehouse, we have what's called extractors, which are special heavy-duty washers that can wash our turnout gear. And we also have decontamination areas where firefighters can come back from a incident and properly decontaminate and, wash up, decontaminate properly without taking that home with them the next day. So those are all items that are added into this.
Chief Cannell, you mentioned diesel fuel. Why not just regular fuel?
Regular fuel?
Fuel as opposed to diesel fuel. Why do you use diesel fuel? Tell the public so they'll understand the value. Director Speak spoke about vehicles and the need to have something that's going to extend the capability and travel time for all of our fire apparatus.
Right, and we have to use diesel engines in our larger fire apparatus, and every firehouse has one. So we're always looking at the most modern vehicles that are out there in the top of the line vehicles, and our ladder trucks are costing close to $1 million. Our engines that we have in every firehouse are in the range of $500,000, so they're very expensive, but very important and very valuable assets to the city that all have to run on diesel motors.
And that's why part of the design to address that concern. And is that something you're going to be projecting into all the new fire stations to be built?
Moving forward, that's correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Ms. Patz, texting 911, why don't you speak to what that really represents to the public in the sense of the value of knowing how to text 911 and whether or not you are not going to have the location of where the person is texting from, and how do we get back in touch with the person if you have to?
Text to 911's been a project for the county, for Franklin County, and all of the agencies for we've been working on this for seven years. And for the last 2 years, we've been getting really serious and getting all the agencies together. And we finally have got all of the pieces and parts, the software, the hardware, everything is installed. This is so important to the deaf community, for them to get away from TDY and be able to text us immediately. Same thing with any type of domestic violence situation involving children, where they can go into a closet or they can get away from what's going on and text us. And it's just like making a phone call into the 911 center. They'll get the same look, they'll see the text messages, and the call taker or the text taker will be able to text back and forth with the person that's texting us the emergency. But the most important thing to remember is we're not going to have that location. So if one of the first questions that the call taker is going to ask is, where are you, so we can find you. So There's a lot of training that's happened across the county with all of our 911 dispatchers and our call takers in every agency. They've all been trained. We're getting close to being ready. I'm expecting us to be able to implement this live countywide in the first quarter of 2019. But we're going to really put together, we're putting together a marketing campaign. Just like years ago when 911 came into fruition, you saw stickers and brochures and posters everywhere. You're going to start seeing that here in the near future as well. Basically, call if you can, text if you can't. Because there is a lot of shortcomings to texting, we have some pockets in the county that you cannot text from. And this system is completely different than the 911 system. It uses different towers. It uses a different software system. It's basically a cellular call versus a text call, and the technologies are completely different. So we've had to adjust our thinking as well when it comes to support across the county, but I think it's extremely valuable for emergencies. We've had several calls already. We had an emergency in the Short North. We had a gentleman that was stuck in an elevator, and because he was encased in a concrete box, he could not make a cell call, but he got a text to us about his emergency, and we immediately contacted the fire department. So we have the ability to text the 911, but it's not quite ready. So I expect that it'll probably be the first quarter of 2019.
Obviously, we want people to not text and drive, so if they're going to text you, they make sure they're not doing that. But again, the value of knowing how to get in touch with our emergency personnel is absolutely invaluable, and locations have become significant, so the fire division and or police division can respond to the appropriate location. That has been an ongoing issue for a long, long time. So whatever can be done to help educate the public about when to text as opposed to when to make a phone call, and providing location becomes absolutely critical.
Yeah, we're going to have a web page. There's going to be a website. There's going to be a fact sheet. There's a lot of marketing going on. We're preparing it now. You're using all the public information officers from all of the agencies that are involved in this project, and they're putting it together as one united front, and it'll all be standardized across the county.
And a question about weights and measures, gas pumps and skimmers. Why don't you speak to what actually happens when someone does that, if you would, please?
It's amazing how quickly they can put these devices inside of a gas pump. It takes less than 30 seconds to somehow use a key or some type of device to open up the gas pump and slide a device inside, tape it with black tape, and what it does, it has the ability to, when you put your credit card in that machine, it reads your credit card number. We're also seeing devices that actually go on the outside of the pump that covers the actual input of your credit card. It looks exactly like it. It's hard to tell that it's not real, but it actually, that just sticks on it. Now we're also seeing some that's actually, like when you go into the gas station, you pay at a convenience store, you buy a pop. As soon as the clerk's head's turned, they place the entire cover over top of it, and you don't even know it's different. So it's expanding. It's just not the gas pumps. It's expanding to any sale device that you're actually putting your credit card in. This year, my weights and measures team has had 2 incidences. They found one themselves in the North End. The second one, they worked with the FBI, and the FBI contacted us, and we responded and helped them work with that, trying to see if they came back to get the device. And we did get someone coming back and getting the device off the machine. So it's expanding. It's amazing how quickly they can get in and they can get these things installed on these. But I have to say that the gas stations are getting smarter. They're putting more safeguards on some of the pumps, but some of these pumps are still old and they're very easy to access. They're copying keys and open them with a key.
How do you share that information with police so they know if you get complaints at a particular particular gas station, or?
We call the police, they make a report. They were involved in both the incidents in the Short North, and then the FBI took over the investigation, but police reports are done immediately.
So what would be your message to the public? What would you say to them while you have this commanding audience?
I would say when you put your credit card into a gas pump, if something doesn't look right or you're just feeling like this doesn't look quite right, move to a pump or go to the gas station attendant and say, I think something's wrong. You may even, they even look the same, but they're actually putting even the name of the gasoline on the top so it looks completely like it should, but there's an overlay on it. Just be careful. Be careful. I mean, seem to be seeing a lot of it in the north end, so I would keep my eyes open in the north end.
I'm sure Deputy Chief Woods is aware of all that. Chief Woods, a question for you in particular. Last year we had 143 homicides, and we had our 100th homicide yesterday. Today is December 19th. What's your projection for the end of the year, sir? Heaven forbid that we have any other people get killed in our city. But the fact of the matter is that the numbers are down from where they were last year. And what do you attribute that to?
Well, I don't have a projection. I have a hope. I hope that we've had our last one for the year. That's what we always hope, is that we have less homicides, less families victimized. I hope that the interaction that we've had with the community, that our time spent with the Safe Streets Initiative, our block watch meetings, getting out, our interacting with the youth, that we're having some impact on stemming some of the violence. We hope that we're becoming more approachable so that if something does happen, that we can isolate it to a single incident instead of a retaliatory assault that takes place. So those are the things that we want to build off of. Every time we have one, we're working with, in the Linden community especially, when there is an incident, we're bringing in representatives from the health department to try and talk to the neighborhood and try and stem that violence and stop that so there is no retaliation. Sometimes it's our youth that a homicide happens, then somebody wants to get back at someone. If we can stop that from happening, maybe we can prevent a second shooting or even a homicide. So I think continued interaction is always going to be our best strategy. And also, obviously, that the importance of all that, you get a lot of gunfire at New Year's. We'll be ending the year pretty soon. What would you say? Because then the fire division's got to get very, very busy when folks start shooting guns into the air, not realizing that the bullets do come back down to earth. Yeah, we stress that every year, that what goes up has to come down. And unfortunately, over the years, we've had our residents injured by falling gunfire. It's not that someone meant to shoot someone, but I just don't think everyone thinks how dangerous that can be. Police are responding to that. Firefighters are responding to that. So our message is and always continues to be, do something else.
There's different programs. Even the city offers programs for people to engage in circumstances so that they don't have to be engaged in firing off weapons in the middle of the night or at midnight on New Year's Eve. It's just important to hear from law enforcement and from fire the importance of not doing that, it's not a recreational activity, it's a very, very dangerous activity. It's tying up both safety forces with things that may not be emergencies, and if someone does need our help, we're both tied up responding to just shots being fired into the air randomly. Also, Chief, there's, and I'm going to ask for you and for Chief Cannell to speak to this issue about the opioid crisis that we're experiencing. And I know the police division is asking for some additional money. You got a grant. But the police division has been very active in our police officers carrying Narcan. Would you speak to that, sir? Yeah, it's been a great program. Officers are flagged down. I hear calls all the time on the police radio of ODs. Sometimes the officers are the first ones there, and with the training we receive, the equipment that we have, the Narcan, officers are available to take immediate action and help revive people and get them to the point where the Division of Fire can come in and take over from us and provide that advanced care. But across the city now we're seeing officers embracing carrying Narcan, and especially in our neighborhoods that have high incidence of that. Almost every officer, it comes across an OD victim, and we're just happy that that equipment and that life-saving drug is out there. Chief Cannell, how many EMS runs do you know you're doing every day that involve opioid abuse?
Yeah, every day about opioid use, we're up about 12 to 15 per day. And unfortunately, out of those 12 to 15 per day, we're averaging about 1 death per day. And, I was asked about where are we at this point during the year. We're up to about 5,000 overdose substance abuse calls this year, and less than 10%, approximately 400 of them, have resulted in deaths.
What would you say to the community? How do we try to address this problem certainly from an EMS perspective and then subsequently from a law enforcement perspective?
Well, I think those that have sought assistance and help for their addiction has made a difference. But the key is you have to recognize there is a problem and you have to want the help in the first place. And that's where we've come up with we've created the REACT team, partnering with Columbus Police and various agencies, and we've had a lot of success with that. And it's been a great program, and we just plead with people to go get help. And that's the key. You have to want help.
Chief?
I think the one message that I would have is if you're with someone that has used and is overdosing, don't wait. Don't be afraid to call us. We can deal with the legalities of it secondary, but let's get that person help. And maybe we can get the REACT team involved and we can stop that one individual, but don't be afraid to call. Get the police and fire there so we can at least save the person and give them a chance at that recovery.
And Director Speaks, going to leave you almost basically the last word here. Speak to the projections and the concerns and the overwhelming interest in this cadet program that's going to impact both police and fire for the community. And I know we already have, and we're sustaining the Explorer program, if I'm not mistaken, correct, in the police division.
Correct. Mayor Ginther is investing $1.4 million into this pilot. So this pilot will begin in April in Division of Fire, in August in Division of Police. We'll have 20 cadets in each. These cadets will become very familiar with the procedures and policies of the division. So when they hopefully go and take that test to become public safety officers, this gives them a great background to succeed, and that this will be a vehicle by which to increase our diversity. We're very excited about this program.
And how are you going to advertise to get people interested in this program? Do you know?
We are coming up with a marketing campaign now for that initial April date that will be launched very soon.
Okay, excellent. Chief Woods, one more question again for you. And the gunshot detection program, where do we stand with regards to that, sir, going into 2019?
Yes, sir. ShotSpotter. So we're placing that in 3 neighborhoods across the city. Currently, our officers are getting trained on it. Our dispatchers are getting trained on it. So once that comes live, we hope to do that in the first quarter of 2019. This system will detect gunshots on its own. It will be analyzed, and then that information will be delivered to the division. We will send officers out there. Even if we don't find someone in the area with the firearm, what we can do is do some investigation. We can look for shell casings. We can talk to the neighbors. We can provide information on how to report crime. So we're excited, and we think that that's going to be a valuable tool to help us deal with violent crime.
Along those same lines, where do we stand with regards to community cameras? And maybe Ramona could speak to that as well, but maybe not. But someone to speak to, I know it's a capital scenario, and we'll have to look at it with the capital budget, but
Director, Chairman Brown, it is a capital expenditure. There is currently money in the capital budget to maintain the cameras that we currently have. However, we have no additional funds identified at this time to expand the program.
Okay. But I take it that the police division still likes likes the community cameras, and if we can figure out some way to get some additional dollars, that there's value to that.
We do. We utilize those both proactively and reactively. If we have a project, we can assign officers at a substation to monitor those cameras and help direct officers that are on the street. And then reactively, if we have something that has occurred in a neighborhood and we know that we have a camera in that vicinity, we can go back, look at the footage, and see if there's something that can help us with that investigation.
I know there's significant value in what they can do to help in law enforcement, so whatever we can do to try and take a look at that when the time comes. I get phone calls from the community asking me about cameras in their neighborhoods, and we have to figure out how we can try to continue to do that and the value associated with it. There's just no way to get around that. But once the project on the gunshot detection is a pilot, is that correct? And then we'll evaluate it, determine its worth and value as we proceed to move forward. Would that be a proper assessment?
Yes.
Okay. With that all being said, at this time, I'll take additional public comment. I'll call the name of the individuals who filled out a speaker slip in order at which they were turned in. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Please share your name, address, and any organization you represent before you begin your statement. And I have a speaker slip here for a Jennifer Chamberlain. Jennifer, please. Ms. Chamberlain, please state your name and the organization you represent, and you have 3 minutes, and your address.
Okay. Jennifer Chamberlain, I'm the chair of the Far East Area Commission. The commission's address is 2500 Park Crescent Drive, our substation, Neighborhood Pride Center. My address is 170 West Home Street in Westerville.
Please.
Was that okay? Okay. So I'm here tonight. I'm actually representing 3 areas: the Far East, the Greater Southeast, and the MAC. All 3 of them. We've been meeting together for 6 months, every 2 to 3 weeks now, collectively, trying to develop a mission for what we're calling the Greater East Side, and we're attempting to advocate, promote, sustain, and improve the communities within the Greater East Side. And with that, tonight I wanted to focus on 4 areas. One is zone mapping, precinct mapping, substations, and accident sites. And what we are requesting, an additional precinct centrally located in Zone 2. With that, we would like, if possible, to take a look at a more proportional substation to precinct ratio as well. So those are the 2 things that we're really trying to, I guess, come across.
Your concerns are, but are there issues with response times, the types of crimes that are occurring in the community, or is there issues with traffic? What, if you can give me just a general idea so that Chief Woods can not only respond to you,
Sure.
but also can go back and share this information, because again, it's an interaction between both police and fire, so
Sure.
Chief Cannell will hear your commentary, but what exactly do you think you're having issues with?
Okay, so in zone mapping, if you take a look at the zones that we have, for the amount of square miles that each represents, they're a little, well, they're not proportional. If you take a look at Zone 2, which is what the Greater East Side would fall under, if you take the farthest point to the farthest point, that distance, it's more than what the distance would be from the farthest point from Zone 3 to the farthest point in Zone 5. And I think overall, our officers in our area are stretched because of the distance that they are having to go. And what we're stating is that's not just happening within the zone, it's happening within the precincts. So if you look at the map with precincts, what's occurring with the precincts is all along the outer belt, those are our largest per square miles of precincts that are out there. And it makes sense because this, the city grew centrally outward. And so the main focus originally was inward. And as the sprawl happens, that's where we end up with these greater areas at the outer belt, and as more land is accumulated that falls under the city of Columbus. So we're struggling for a need for officers, but we're also struggling because the area that they are under is too large for them to cover. Somebody mentioned going down East Broad Street. That was my home. It takes sometimes a half an hour to go from one end to the other, and our officers are being just tied up. And with substations, it's one thing to look at there is the how a citizen looks at the safety of their community. The substation, as far as safety, appears to be the heart of the safety. And right now, there's 20 precincts, there's 20 substations, but they're not equally divided. 14 and 20 right now share a substation. And it's a long time to get from both ends to that. For accident spots, again, this ties into the response times of our officers, and that's one of the greatest things that you'll hear from residents is the response times. They're too high. And just alone on Broad Street, we've got 3 of the top 10 accident sites on Broad Street, just on Broad Street. Broad and Wagner, Broad and Reynoldsburg, New Albany Road, and Broad and McNaughton. 3 top 10 in the city. So with that, just in the area that our commission represents, Far East Area Commission, since 2000, we've had a 79.48% increase in population.
Yes.
It's huge. And the precinct was divided, but it's still too large for the officers to navigate it effectively. We feel underserved because of that. And we're advocating the safety, not just from the commissions, our businesses and our residents. This is their top concern, top concern. And it's not only for the safety of the community, but for our officers.
Chief Woods, would you like to respond, sir?
Yes, we agree that one of the issues that we've seen over the last several years, probably the last decade, is what you just said about the outer ring of our city. The core of our city really can't grow any longer, but the outer areas continue to grow, and the officers that work that area are stretched. And we do know that there are greater travel times to get from one call for service to the next. So that has an impact then on how long and how soon they can become available for the next call for service. One of the things that we're currently doing right now is we have a consulting group, the Matrix Consulting Group, that is here interviewing and researching the Division of Police, and one of the things they're looking at is our staffing levels. So we're looking forward to getting an outside view of that to look and compare to what we think, and then we'll be able to present a plan to hopefully make those changes, not just for the Far East side, but we're seeing that on the north side of Columbus. Zone 1 is again another large zone that goes basically from Tuttle Mall all the way to Easton. So we have a couple areas of the city that have continued to grow. Population is shifting somewhat, and we need some good information so that when we do make that change, because it's a difficult process to restructure and reorganize the patrol subdivisions. We want to get it as right as we can, because we know as soon as we do it, changes will continue to occur. So we want to make that effective as long as we possibly can. So I hear you, I understand you, and we are working toward that.
And I would also add that you're correct, the square miles is not equal on the 5 zones, but the distance is only one factor that's taken into consideration. So density, and density is increasing all over. People want to move to Central Ohio, which is wonderful. Crime rate is another that is taken in consideration as we deploy our staff. Lastly, as I said before, this proposed budget, 68 cents out of every dollar is going to one department, Department of Public Safety. The city still has to fund essential services such as public health, our public service department with our refuse, water, and many, many other vital services for our residents. So, but rest assured, whatever resources that council and the mayor grants, we will do our best to provide those services.
Mr. Chamberlain, how about we do this as well? You've heard from Chief Woods, and I can assure you they discuss these issues with regards to allocation of resources all the time. The complexities of how you move people around is very, very significant. But how about we set up an opportunity where someone from the Division of Police, the appropriate folks, and myself, I'll be more than happy to come out and meet with the representatives of your community and talk about the issue and give you some more detailed responses as to what we can and can't do, and to be more aware, especially from a business perspective as well as the residents who live in the community. Our city is growing. What the last figure is 850, almost 870,000 people in the city of Columbus. That's a good thing for us to have. But then again, we have to make sure that our people are safe when they have those kinds of numbers. One of the other areas, and Chief Woods knows my particular feelings about that, is to deal with traffic. I am not a fan of being in traffic for extended periods of time. Having spent some time out in California, I don't want that to happen here, but I do want people to move here. So we have to figure out how to strike the balance. And to make that worthwhile. And what better way to do it than to come out and spend time in the neighborhood and to talk to the residents and offer up some clarity on the sense of the role that our police division can and what they can offer. You heard them discuss what the budget is for 2018 or 2019. We got to look at what we can and can't do about additional people to keep track and keep pace with what's going on in our society and what's going on in our city. We're very, very blessed to have this issue. I can tell you personally, I know that Director Speaks is very, very familiar with the traffic statistics you talked about Broad Street. He knows my feelings about, especially Broad and McNaughton, because that's, again, not far from where I live, and was involved in a car crash there myself. So I'm very sensitive to the circumstances. So we have to figure out how we can address that. But I appreciate you taking the time to come down and to speak to the concerns. We have large areas of the city of Columbus. We still got to make sure that they're getting the appropriate response times with regards to police when there's a phone call made. And you've heard from 911. Everything is on the table in that respect. And as council looks at the budget, obviously, we look at those kinds of things and the staffing that they have in the traffic unit and what they can or can't do about that. There was a program just recently on about people driving past school buses when the school signs, the bus signs come out to say stop, and they continue to go past. And the police officers can't do anything because they're not really there when the incident occurs, so we got to figure out a better way, and that's where technology comes into play. So we're going to spend some time to take a look at a variety of things to try and make sure that our community is safe. Is that acceptable to you?
Yes, thank you, Safety Chair Brown.
Absolutely. Is that your young daughter back there? Is that?
It is.
Okay. Well, thank you for her coming down and for your time. We appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. If any members of the community have any further questions or concerns, please feel free to contact the Department of Public Safety at 614-645-8210 or my office, 614-645-4605. In closing, I'd like to thank my fellow councilmembers, Councilmember Stingiano, who was present, Mayor Andrew J. Ginther, Auditor Megan Kilgore, City Attorney Zach Klein, Finance Director Joe Lombardi, and Public Safety Director Ned Pettis Jr. for their leadership in this budget process. In addition, I'd like to recognize Assistant Director George Speaks, Assistant Director Kate Pisciotti, though Kate's not here right now, and Mr. Echo Dennis. You can pass that along to them, George. And the entire Department of Public Safety and their staff for their role in the budget process. I would also like to thank Deputy Chief Woods, Assistant Chief Cannell, Battalion Chief Devlin, and Administrator Patz for their presentations this evening. I'd also like to thank my staff, Denise Foster, Friend Foster, John Oswald, and Grant Ames for their assistance in preparing this evening's hearing. Finally, I would like to thank the community for their engagement in tonight's proceedings. Upon the conclusion of tonight's hearing, I, along with my fellow councilmembers, will review the public safety budget with consideration to the comments from tonight's proceedings. And I trust that Director Pettis, Fire Chief O'Connor, and Police Chief Kim Jacobs, and Administrator Patz will make themselves available or their staffs available for further questions. This concludes tonight's Public Safety Committee. Everyone have a wonderful holiday, and good night.